Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse, and in this recording I'm going to be exploring the astrology of October 2024. So then, we are now in spooky season. I have to reference that because perhaps predictably, being as witchy as I am, I absolutely love the autumn, and October is just one of my favourite months because I love to see all of the changing of the season, the colours of the leaves, the feel of nostalgia, a little bit of sentimentality that comes through around this time. There's an aching poignancy, I feel, to autumn. And as we come into this month, we are also in the midst of eclipse season, and that in itself kind of tunes us in to something that is bigger than ourselves, more than what we see. We are talking about connections to the nodes when we're talking about eclipses, and the nodal movements are connected to our soul's growth. And often when we are in eclipse season, it can feel very much like the things that we say for Halloween or Samhain, which falls at the end of October, where the other worlds are making themselves known to us. We become more sensitive or just more conscious of these invisible worlds that are somehow beyond this world. And somehow something up there is starting to point out where we need to go, what we need to do. Or we might sometimes feel like the universe, the gods, whatever we want to call it, has stepped in and has somehow created an entire situation from nothing and miraculously somehow put us onto either a new road or resolved a problem or taken us in a direction that we never expected to go. Eclipse season can feel very spiritual, but also a little like anything could happen, just like we have the ghost kind of jumping out at us at Halloween. It can surprise us, it can shock us, it can take us in all different directions, and certainly it's likely to make us question where we are in our lives and what we believe and what we think. And it's with the eclipse that we begin October. On the 2nd of October, we have a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. So this is a new moon. It means it's an important new moon because it's an eclipse. And it's taking place at 10 degrees and 3 minutes of the sign Libra. So if you have anything between around 9 to 11 degrees of Libra, Aries, Cancer or Capricorn, that's going to make more of an impact upon your chart, and it certainly will activate any transits that are happening around those points as well. And so with the eclipse being in the sign of Libra, we know that there are matters that are important here that are connected with our relationships with other people, how we relate to other people, the agreements that we have made with other people, how we feel about other people in our lives, how we're interacting, how we're communicating with one another, who are our allies and who are our enemies. These are some of the themes that are connected with the new moon in Libra, the solar eclipse in Libra. Solar eclipses do tend to sometimes hide something that is important that we find out later down the line. So I always think we need to be aware and perhaps conscious of making any major decisions around eclipses, because sometimes there's some information that hasn't come forward yet, or just a hidden factor we're not conscious of. It doesn't mean that it's something bad, it just means there's something we're not yet aware of. Now, I have also seen it that eclipses can actually reveal something. So we might kind of have a situation where the eclipse sparks something in our chart, and then whatever it was that we didn't see before is now coming to light. And we start to become much more aware of something that has been working behind the scenes, whether it's something within ourselves. It might be the time when we suddenly think, I can't hold back this feeling anymore. So the eclipse is going to bring us some kind of hidden factor, or bring some kind of hidden factor to light that is likely to speak to our relationships, our most important relationships with other people, both personally and professionally. Wherever this is happening in your chart, it's going to bring in the relationships, the area of life that it happens in the house in your natal chart. And it's also just going to ask you whether or not this part of life feels fair, whether it feels balanced or not. What is coming to light here that is revealing that there is some kind of imbalance? These are some of the things that you can look at around this time. I will be doing a much more deeper exploration of this chart, the solar eclipse chart, over on my Patreon, and also that'll be available for paying members of my Substack as well. So the 5th of October, this is the date that Mars enters the shadow zone. So heads up, we are going to be coming back to the stuff that Mars stirs up around this time. So the actual degree is 17 degrees and 1 minute of the sign Cancer. Mars isn't going to be retrograde until the 6th of December. So we have quite a while yet, but because Mars is going to cover a lot of ground whilst it is in retrograde motion, the shadow period begins now. So when we talk about shadow zones, there's different opinions within the astrological community. There are some people who just feel like the shadow zone doesn't really make any difference. It doesn't really make any impact. I personally think it does make an impact, and it is just important to be conscious of what is coming up around this time, just to pay attention, just to make a note of it, journal it. What are you feeling? Mars is in the sign of Cancer, which is a very feeling sign. It's a sign that we associate with the inner child, with our instincts, with also home and family. But certainly Mars in Cancer stirs up a lot of feelings, and we want to sort of defend and protect what we hold dear. And sometimes we can be a little bit more reactive when Mars is in Cancer, because it is sort of tapping into the inner child. And if we feel threatened or angry, then we can have sort of regressive behavior. So Mars going into Cancer is going to stir up an area of our own personal chart, and it is going to bring in some feelings, and it's about acknowledging those feelings, recognizing those feelings. What are those feelings asking you to do? Because Mars is about action, it's energy, it's our goals, it's a mission that we want to go on. You know, Mars is the soldier, Mars is the warrior. So what is it that you're fighting for? What is being stirred up inside? And so these are the themes that we're going to be dealing with as we go forward, as we move forwards in time, and eventually as Mars goes backwards, we will come back to some of the stories that begin around now. On the 9th of October, Jupiter is going to station retrograde. So this will be at 21 degrees and 20 minutes of the sign Gemini, and Jupiter will go back to 11 degrees and 17 minutes of the sign Gemini, and it will be in retrograde motion until the 5th of February 2025, when Jupiter will station direct. Whenever we have Jupiter stationing retrograde, this is an opportunity for inner growth. Jupiter, by its nature in forward motion, always pushes us to expand. He says, here is an opportunity for you to develop. Here are all the things that you could do, all the places you could go, all the stuff that you could learn. This is something that could be bigger and better in your life, and let's go, let's do it. And so Jupiter has this very enthusiastic kind of energy to it, very adventurous. But when we are going into retrograde motion, Jupiter is now asking us to check in with whether our inner growth matches the outer growth. We need to be ready for the opportunities that life is going to bring us. So Jupiter in retrograde motion gives us that chance to just do this check-in. The challenge is that often we can feel like, wherever Jupiter is moving in our charts and we're starting to feel good about it, suddenly it seems like maybe the rug has been pulled from under us and it's like, oh, this is all going so well and now it's just not working and there's a problem. And so we start to get frustrated with it. So it's important just to kind of note, this is Jupiter's action. If he's holding things back or stopping things from moving too fast or just kind of withdrawing the potential, then there's a reason for that. It's because we're not ready yet, or the timing is not right yet. So don't panic if things start to slow down where they had been really good, because once Jupiter has finished this retrograde period, we'll be ready again to start developing in this area of life, wherever we are in our own personal natal chart. Gemini for the collective just means that it's almost like revision. Gemini is facts and figures and the mind and communication and books and schooling and teachers and learning. And Jupiter's associated with higher learning as well. So there's a real vibe of revise what you think you know whilst Jupiter is stationing retrograde. Pluto stations direct. So one is going one way, one is going the other way. This is on the 12th of October. So Pluto is going to station direct on that 29 degrees of Capricorn. This is huge. Again, I feel like I keep saying it all this year. It's so big, it's so important, but it is. There's so much stuff that's happening at the moment that is just milestone moments. And this is another one of them, because Pluto is stationing direct for the last time in Capricorn in our lifetime. He's on that 29 degrees, the anaretic, critical degree, liminal space. We're on this urgent mission to finish the transformation before Pluto goes into Aquarius in November. So we're just a few weeks away now. And we might find that there are some corresponding stories that come out in the collective, in the media. In other words, there might be things that really stand out around this period that tell us that things have indeed changed. Pluto in Capricorn has been changing the very system at its roots. It's been pulling down, tearing down the institutions that aren't working for us. It's been exposing where the wealth is. It's been telling us there are things that are wrong in these rules or in this system, and it needs to change. And for all of us personally, we've had to tear down certain structures in our lives to empower ourselves, or to find our power, to find our way through the dark. So Pluto stationing direct now begins that march to the end, to that deadline. Now also on the 12th of October, on the same day as Pluto stationing direct, we're going to have Jupiter beginning a series of sextiles through to Chiron. So Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, sextile Chiron over there in Aries. So we get one on the 12th of October, one on the 2nd of November, and then one on the 18th of May 2025. So the first two are really close together, and then the last one is next year. But still, Jupiter sextile to Chiron. So we know that this is a positive, helpful, constructive connection, because sextiles tend to invite us. It's like we don't have to use this energy if we don't want to. It's the same as our natal chart. We don't have to if we don't want to, but if we use our sextiles, these are gifts, and these aspects will give us kind of something sweet at the end. If we think about the sextile, it forms a hexagonal shape, which always makes me think of honeybees. And bees work really, really hard to create that honey. So we tend to have to work hard with a sextile, but something sweet comes from it. And certainly with Jupiter sextile to Chiron, we have some kind of big opportunity to fix things, Chiron, to put things back together, to bring things together, or just for healing. And sometimes, people say, oh, we can't heal everything. No, we can't. Exactly. We can't always heal things, but we can find a way forwards regardless. We can live despite our wounds. We can overcome the most incredible, potent, powerful, difficult challenges in life that have floored us, and yet at some point we kind of realize it's time now to get up. It's time now to go on. It's time now to either start again or at least allow ourselves to experience some other aspect of life, something else that's more positive. Jupiter sextile to Chiron can also be like a bridge between here and there, a bridge between ourselves and other people. It's almost like a bridge across troubled waters. I guess that's a symbol that I could use. I know there's no water here in these signs, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. Jupiter is so enthusiastic about things, and he is a sky god after all. So it is like the skies are smiling upon us with Jupiter sextile to Chiron, but we've got to be willing to do the work to overcome the hurt. And that, I think, is the most important thing. And sometimes we feel like we want to stay in that difficult place or bad place, because it's easier than healing and getting back out there in the world and risking being hurt again. So Jupiter sextile to Chiron is like a little push from the universe to say, there's much more to experience, there's much more to life than just the things that didn't work and the things that got broken. Now, as we start to come to the middle of the month, there is a very definite change in energy. So yes, we have this really helpful Jupiter sextile to Chiron going on, and that's going to just be floating around in the background there. But we are going to have more foreground stuff that is a little bit superheated, supercharged. We have got some spicy energies coming into play. The first thing that I want to mention is that Mars is gradually moving towards an opposition with Pluto. Mars in Cancer opposing Pluto, stuck on that 29th degree of Capricorn. And so that in itself, it's not actually going to perfect until I think it's right at the very beginning of November, 1st or 2nd of November. But just pretty much for the entire rest of October, we're getting closer and closer and closer to Mars activating Pluto anaretic in Capricorn. So there's a sense of some kind of a build-up of heat. A build-up, I guess I'm just suddenly remembering that you guys over in America are going to have your elections, which is somewhere around that time. So I'm just suddenly thinking about that as I'm speaking. But just, for all of us, there is this sense that's almost like momentum. There is momentum building up. So on the 13th of October, Mars will square Chiron. So yes, we still have Jupiter sextile to Chiron, but now we've got a little bit of irritation coming through. Mars square to Chiron is like the wounded soldier, the archetype of the wounded soldier. So we've got a feeling of being disarmed. On the same day, we're also going to have Mercury moving into Scorpio. So mind turns to Scorpio topics. It deepens our thinking. It makes us think about stuff that is beneath the surface. We want to know what is going on. We want to get down to the truth. And so Mercury in Scorpio, this can be super perceptive. This can speak of profound conversation. It can mean that we're exploring territory that we haven't explored before. because Scorpio can symbolize our sort of shadows. So exploring our mental shadows, Mercury going into Scorpio. But there is this sort of painful feeling coming through with Mars square to Chiron. And this kind of carries on because we're then going to have the Sun opposite to Chiron. This is on the 14th of October. And at the same time, the Sun squaring Mars. So this is now starting to form a grand cross pattern, or sometimes people say a grand square. So this is why I was saying we've got this feeling of a building momentum. X marks the spot. There is some kind of cross to bear, or there is some kind of feeling that we're at a crossroads, a really big crossroads with these energies in play. And yes, I always say that there is treasure at the center of the grand cross, but we can't negate the fact that there is a lot of tension in these aspects. Yes, the Sun will form a trine to Jupiter, but I kind of feel like, that's almost getting a little bit lost in the midst of it. And the trouble with that is that we can become over optimistic in how we're going to deal with whatever is going on with the square, or we can be super judgmental about whatever is going on with the square. So we just need to just kind of step back for a moment and just think about our reactions and what are our triggers, and how am I feeling around this time, especially with the Sun square to Mars as well, because Sun square Mars can be a little bit sort of fired up. We're sort of on the warpath and kind of feeling like I'm going to tell it like it is, and we start to really get into ego stuff. So 17th of October, we then follow all of that up with a full moon in Aries. So this full moon in Aries is going to be at 24 degrees and 49 minutes of the sign Aries. And look at that, it is right beside Eris, on the same degree as Eris, the goddess of discord. And now we have this big grand cross all in play, being triggered by this lunation. So this clearly is a very animated, dynamic period of time. Aries energy is all about motivation, will, desire, passions. Let's get it done. Let's move things along now. Aries energy wants things to happen quickly, and things can happen quickly under this kind of influence. And if they don't happen quickly, then we can get enormously frustrated. But remember that this is the first of the lunations after eclipse season. And then we've got Aries here, who really likes to tell it like it is. So we can see that this is, like I say, a very spicy period of time. And it's going to benefit us if we can try to be conscious of how we're reacting and what we're sort of getting fired up about. And also just trying to use the energies as positively as we possibly can. And being mindful that things are happening quite quickly. And some of those things, and especially with Pluto's position, a lot of the things that are happening for a reason. They're happening because it's almost like time is running out now. We just got to get this done, whatever it is that we need to change, or whatever it is that we need to conclude. Remember, a full moon is bringing things to a head. It brings things to a conclusion. And so there is a little bit of what I want to say, volcanic energy around this lunation and around this part of October. Now, also on the 17th of October, Venus is going to enter Sagittarius. I'm not sure how much we're going to notice that with all the rest of the stuff going on, but still, Venus going into Sagittarius says that the heart longs to be sort of footloose and fancy free. We are wanting to explore our options. We're wanting to explore the world. The heart is being called to different experiences, new experiences with different kinds of peoples or different kinds of cultures. Or the heart is being called to some kind of study. Sagittarius is also associated with higher education. So the heart is being pulled to know more, to understand more. And we could also say to know the truth, because Sagittarius is always searching for the truth, for the higher truth, like God's truth or the universe's truth. What is the truth? Now, really, there are many truths. There's not really just one truth. But Venus is going to tug at our heartstrings as it goes through Sagittarius and give us a little bit of a boost of excitement. Hopefully it will give us something positive, because Sagittarius is an adventurous sign, an enthusiastic sign. So that might help to mediate some of the more tempestuous energy that's going on in the background. But still, it is just a bit more fire in an already quite fiery picture. Now, talking of which, fire, Hygeia goes back into fiery Aries. This is on the 18th of October. So Hygeia is retrograde. I spoke about that in the August monthly forecast. So Hygeia started off retrograde in Taurus and is now going back into Aries, and she will remain in retrograde motion in Aries until the 14th of December. That's when she's going to station direct. So Hygeia going back into Aries is going to ask us once again to look at what is your motivation. How inspired do you feel? Are you thriving? What are you doing? It's kind of like, particularly with all the stuff with this grand cross and the full moon in Aries and then Mars and Pluto, the question, what are you doing, is perhaps very relevant. We need to ask ourselves, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is there a reason for this goal? What is my underlying motivation? Is this healthy for me? Am I spending my energies wisely? Day to day, my day-to-day energy, how am I using this? Am I burning myself out? Am I trying to burn the candle at both ends? Am I trying to fix everything instead of just fixing myself? Hygeia in retrograde motion in Aries might ask some of these questions or prompt some of these questions. And just generally, how can we protect our energy? How can we stay motivated, excited, interested, stimulated in the world when there's a whole load of stuff going on out there that sometimes just sucks the life out of you? When you read the newspaper, it's like, oh my God, what is going on? So how can we protect our energy and our zest for life? Hygeia retrograde in Aries is going to examine that. 22nd of October, the Sun will square Pluto on its way through to entering Scorpio. So we get like a double dose of Pluto energy. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. So we're moving into Scorpio season. As we move into Scorpio season, we come, I want to say, face to face with Pluto. Or maybe he's just peeking his face around the door, waving to us as we walk into one of his tunnels. And we start to take that tunnel down into our deepest, darkest feelings and fears. And also there is like an element of we're all excavating what's going on underneath. We are looking for treasure here. This is like a treasure hunt when we are in Scorpio season, but we have to peel back all of these layers. We have to get past all of our inner demons to be able to get to the treasure. The Sun in Scorpio is also a season, a time of year when we are asked to look at how we are sharing and what we are sharing with others. And there is a prompt always with Scorpio to be closer. This can speak of intimacy, sexual intimacy, but it also can speak of emotional intimacy. and allowing ourselves to be truly seen. It's like, if I let you see my darkest side, then you know all of me. That is like the sun going into Scorpio. On the 25th of October, Mars is going to form a sextile to Uranus. So we have a little bit of a helping hand here. I kind of feel like this is telling us, if we free ourselves from our insecurities, that is going to help us to take the right action. Mars sextile to Uranus is kind of like freedom fighter energy, but this is like positive because it's a sextile, and it's almost like siphoning off some of the stress between that building opposition between Mars and Pluto. It's like, instead of fighting the things that are not in our control, Mars opposite Pluto, we could instead look at what can be changed. Uranus, what can be updated? What could we do different? Instead of banging our heads against a brick wall, what can I do differently? Mars sextile to Uranus is going to help us to manage Mars opposite to Pluto. And then at the end of the month, we are going to have Mars forming a trine to Neptune. It's a funny day, 28th of October. We're going to have Mars trine Neptune, but we're also going to have Venus square Saturn. So Venus square Saturn, I'll deal with that one first, because that tends to manifest as, I don't have enough. There's a feeling of lack. There's not enough love. There's not enough money. I'm unhappy. I can't be happy. These are all expressions of Venus square to Saturn. I don't have enough money to be happy, or I'm constantly feeling upset, discontented. Venus square Saturn. Nothing is comfortable. Everything is uncomfortable. So this is awkward. It's scratchy. And yet Mars trine to Neptune is like a soft place to fall. And yes, of course, Mars is still building up to the opposition to Pluto. But once again, we've had the invitation to do something different, Mars sextile to Uranus. And now we have the opportunity to tap into our intuition, Neptune, so that it can guide our actions. It can inform us of what is best to do. Mars trine to Neptune also encourages us to be actively compassionate with ourselves and with other people. Mars trine to Neptune might also be acting on the behalf of the collective, or doing things on behalf of other people, helping other people. Sometimes that's a really good way of resetting these feelings of lack. Venus square to Saturn. If you feel unhappy, instead of trying to, make yourself happy, make someone else happy, or, do something nice for someone else. It doesn't have to involve money. And that can then bring back this flow of energy, because squares tend to kind of box us in, whereas trines tend to open things up. So Mars trine to Neptune is like a spiritual flow of energy that's coming straight from our soul. We can tap into it. So it's like actively generating feelings of compassion and kindness will bring back a sense of motivation and strength. When we feel connected, Neptune, to something that is beyond us, whether it's God, Goddess, spirit helpers, however you want to call it, when we feel connected to these invisible realms, that can make us feel strong. It can make us feel emotionally strong. Mars in Cancer. So, as you have heard, it is going to be quite a dynamic, powerful month. There's a lot going on. If you would like to dive deeper into all of this, I do have a weekly forecast that I do over on my Patreon, also on my Substack, along with the lunations. I will put all of my links below where you can find me on the web. I will see you again soon, and in the meantime, I wish you many blessings on your path.